James Weir. I come from a very, well, not so small town in Victoria called Ballarat. If anyone's ever been there before, it's basically a wind tunnel. It gets very hot, especially during the winter. I have been a Joomla user for probably 4 or 5 years now. First introduced to it and thrown into the deep end when I first joined my current job. I've also been a PHP developer for about as long. Mostly my PHP development started while I was at university. As a part of my current job, I'm effectively a web administrator. We don't do a lot of outside hosting. We tend to do a lot of server management and everything ourselves. So we try to keep as much as we can in-house from that perspective. My Twitter handle is like down the bottom right, bottom left there if you ever want it. I try to post on Twitter, but I still haven't caught on as much. And no Facebook because I deleted it, so can't do that. I'm here to talk today about GovHack. Now, just quickly, who in the room has actually heard of GovHack before? Okay, so a few people there, that's pretty good. So GovHack is basically a national competition which is run to make use of open source, well not open source, but it's open government data. So has anyone heard of data.gov.au? Okay, so we've got two people in the room who've actually heard of this. Data.gov.au is basically a repository of data that the government puts out for everyone to use. So there's hundreds of thousands of rows of data just sitting there waiting for someone to use them, and it's free for you to download. All you have to do is go there and then browse for what you want. So the question then becomes, well, what do you do at GovHack? Well, as the media would have you believe, that we're not hacking anything in the government. We're creating things with government data. So it's going back to the old term of what hacking used to be, where you were tinkering with stuff. So GovHack is certainly not a bunch of programmers that sit, behind their desks and just do crazy things with code. There's tons of people who are involved. Pretty much anyone can participate. We had some guys who basically do a whole heap of eco-related stuff for trees and all that sort of stuff. I don't pretend to understand all of what they were doing, but they basically were able to use tree locations which the government provided because they have to know where all trees are, what effect that was having on water quality and things like that. So pretty much anyone can get involved with it. So as I said, GovHack is a national hackathon. We also like to use it as an excuse to learn something new and create something stupid, just because we have 48 hours in which to do it, and if you actually want to sleep during those 48 hours, that's your option. You certainly don't have to. And one of the things that government's really looking for is a way for you to show them their data in new ways. So one of the examples that was shown to us at one point was someone had taken an entire federal budget and put it into a circular graph that showed you the breakdown that you could click onto, and then that would spread out into the next breakdown of that specific section of the budget. And for anyone who's interested, there's also prizes. And it's not just, here's some plushies, there's cash prizes involved from all the sponsored people involved. So this is probably what some people might think is a decent overview. Design something awesome, question mark, profit. Not quite. It's not that easy. Because as I said, you've got 48 hours in which to work with, and if you ever intend to sleep, you probably estimate 16 hours of that towards your sleep. So what our team ended up doing, I'll just point out that this up here, this is our team name. Yes, that's our team name up there. because we couldn't really think of anything, so we decided to do something stupid. Our project was called Growing Pains. Basically, it was an investigation into the growth and planning in Victoria itself. It was between myself and my partner Duncan McNeil. He basically wrote parts of the front end while I was doing most of the back end for it. So there's a couple of links there to get to it, and I'll see if we have time to run through it quickly afterwards. So the first thing we needed to do was find what data set we wanted to use. Now, because there's thousands of data sets available, what GovHack did manage to do for us was to say, these are your prize categories, and here are the sets of data we expect you to use in order to be qualified for that prize, so to speak. So we ended up finding the Victorian Building Authority data, which basically contains about 500,000 rows of data for building permits. So these permits are not only new buildings, but they're also for renovations, extensions, demolitions, all that sort of stuff was there. And to check the data, we actually had a few people who'd done renovations in the past 6 months, and their information was there. So there's no personal information. They made that a very clear thing that it was anonymized data. Basically, they couldn't identify their work to their home, but it gave you a very good idea what was done, including how much roughly was involved in the cost of that. So the next step was we had to build our map, because when we were investigating, we basically wanted to break it down per council area so that you can see what happens in the various councils. And as none of us, or either of us in the project, had never built really an API using Node.js before, we decided, well, as part of the project, why not just learn Node while we're at it? So we ended up doing that on the fly, and I think we got something pretty cool. So then we had two requirements for our project. You have to upload a website for people to view it on, and secondly, you have to make a YouTube video, which neither of us were video producers, so that turned out really well. So finally, we thought it was a really good learning experience, because we used it as an excuse to learn something new. So you don't have to stick with what you already know. Use it as an excuse to try something else that you've never done before, so that way you're actually getting something else out other than just doing something for the government. It's challenging, obviously, because you've got 48 hours if you choose not to sleep, and particular venues will also close at particular times. So that time constraint that you have, as well as trying to meet your expectations for your project, is really quite hard. You've also got the potential for procurement from the government entities. So each project that wins a prize has the potential to be picked up by a government entity that sponsored that particular prize in order to continue the development of your application. So there's always that that goes on sort of after everything's happened. I'll just run through. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
Any examples of some of those?
Yes, we've got ours up here, so let's run through that. So again, this was ours that we ran through and that we had built. So one of the things that we probably should have done, which we didn't realise at the time, was Raphael.js uses SVGs to do maps really, really well, except we didn't think of it at the time. So we ended up just doing images to get our points across. So each of the state areas there that you see is actually a separate image, which is really, really bad. But what do you do when you have no time? So if we come across here, I think the screen's a little bit small, but
what are the regions?
The regions are the council areas.
Yeah.
So basically, as you get closer and closer to Melbourne, they
get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, pretty much. So we have new building growth here by year. So at the moment, so in 2009, basically the darker the area represents how much growth there was for that year for new buildings only. The lighter colour is obviously there's not as many permits were found in those particular areas. So at the moment we're looking at 2009 here. So as you can see, the Mallee's got a decent amount of growth up there, which is all surprising. But then when you go down to 2010, you see it slightly change a little bit. 2011, you start to notice this area here is starting to lighten up a bit, and there's a reason for that. And 2012, 13. So that's just for new buildings. Now the question is why was this area here lacking in its growth for that period of time? Well, the answer is there were some fires there during, I can't see which one it was, 2009. So obviously there's not been as many new buildings going up in that area, possibly because of those fires. Because who's really going to want to build in a fire-prone area like that, especially after what happened? So that's part of what we're hoping to accomplish, is to see what the effects of natural disasters or, in fact, infrastructure upgrades. And then we ended up releasing an API to get everyone, all their data available to everyone else. So, because this data was all in an Excel spreadsheet, we had to convert it, which was not fun. It was not fun at all.
So the government had then, it's a competition, and
yes.
What is it for the prize? Is it kudos? Is it, I may have missed that, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the GovHack competition, the major prizes are all cash prizes, which are sponsored by the entities. But there's basically, like, as I said, the chance to be procured and stuff afterwards.
Can I just reiterate how fantastic it was? We turned up to the Cairns one without even planning on entering a team. And that night we decided to just enter a team.
Yeah.
And it was a great weekend. And at the end of it, we did win $1,000 in a 3D printer because we were the only team.
Oh, really?
Really well.
We had heard about some of those places that really struggled to find teams.
Yeah. We're spotting out the far places.
But yeah, I would seriously, if you can find your local group next year, I'd definitely recommend at least turning up to the first night to see whether or not you're interested in doing the rest of the weekend.
And look, there are international GovHacks now too. Like there are ones that are involved all around the world where you compete with other teams from all around the world.
Okay. Thanks, James.
Very much.